Kako. Ina akua mahali o kono na mea wa amaya o kuma. Thank you, dear Lord, for this meeting to benefit the beneficiaries in Waiehu Kou. That is a seasoned beneficiary community that is deserving of a community center, community facilities. We want to really thank Maile Atai for her proactivity in writing down some of the needs and presenting that before the Hawaiian Commission. We want to thank Roy and all of his long-standing service to Waiehu Kou 3 community and things that they're doing for the acreage between Waiehu Kou 3 and 4 in terms of addressing the flood zone and the resiliency of their community in the context of that flood zone. We want to thank Ku'ulei Maunapau for her longstanding service as a project grant writer, grant implementer, and in that Waiehe community and in the Pai'aina, throughout the archipelago of Hawaii. And we want to thank Kainoa Lei in San Antonio, Texas, for her skill set in facilitating not only the beneficiary community here on Maui, but the beneficiary community statewide through the Sovereign Council of Hawaiian Homestead Associations. And thank you, Lord, for all of your help and your enlightenment to this community of people who are serving our beneficiaries, and help this meeting today so that we can connect with one another and see if we can't work together to deploy Department of Hawaiian Homeland's funding to help the Waiehu Kou community get a community center facility. And we pray for all of these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
So, Koole, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Yes.
And so, I want to each of us to introduce ourselves, and I'm going to start just a short introduction. So, I'm Keikoa Inamoto, and I am chairman of the board of the corporation, and it's winding up its 4th year, November 2016. This is a really exciting project that we're going to be option of what to and services to empower beneficiaries build homes. And, so that's my role in this effort. So Maile, you want to introduce yourself, please?
I am Maile Atai. I live in Waiehu Kou 4 with my husband and 2 kids, and honestly, it just was a thought. And I was off in the summertime, and it just kind of turned into this this proposal that I really didn't think that it would go anywhere. And so I do appreciate all the efforts that everyone is making to see this potentially come to fruition. I've lived.
Initially, an email that you emailed to me, and you're like, "Do you think this can happen?" And I asked you to write down what you wanted to see happen. Yeah. So thank you, Maile, for your and your children's efforts in putting this thing together.
Just a little background on me too. I was raised on Maui, all of Waiehu Kou. I've lived and worked in Waiehu Kou all my life. Most recently, I worked for Hawaii Technology Academy Charter School. Prior to that, I was a school counselor at Baldwin High School for 20 plus years. So yeah, that's kind of where my mindset comes from, more from like the educational standpoint.
Right. And of course, your dad was head of the Department of Health here in Maui.
Yeah. And actually, he and Danny served together on the St. Anthony School Board, as well as Catholic Charities, So he's also familiar with Danny Ornelas too. The St. Anthony connection. Yeah, yeah, Ornelas. Yeah, we're familiar with the Ornelases because we all went St. Anthony's the same time.
Oh, I see. Awesome.
Yep.
Great. Okay, Roy, please introduce yourself, Roy.
Hello, my name is Roy Oliveira. I'm a fugitive from Oahu by way of Honau on the Big Island. Lived there for many years on a 7-acre Bishop Estate farm up in Coffee Land, right above City of Refuge. I moved back to Honolulu, and then when my father passed away, I was awarded this lease here in Waiehu Kou 3, and been living here since about 2008. Like I said, I have retired from my job, which actually were many jobs, but I have been working on as president of the Waiehu Kou Board of Directors here in Waiehu Kou 3, and it's been quite a time-consuming, nitty-gritty job because we have, well, I'm glad you know Daniel because he has propelled us to a lot of things, and I really appreciate him being our vice president, and he does have a real alchemy brain for projecting long-term plans. And because of that, we have been engaged with NOAA, I guess part of the DOI, and we have had a grant in 2017, 18, and now we are going for another one that's supposed to be in 2021. And it's all been because our association here is very strong in representation. We have a Hui Chief network that is every 10 homes, there's a Hui Chief that brings back and forth information from the board to the homesteaders, and that is just one layer of our transparency that we have. The next would be the board of directors, which we usually have 9, but right now, because of some passing of some of our board directors, we have 7 at this time. And then of course, the leasees are the foundation, the base of our association here. So because of all those layers and how we interact with each other, I think we have a good rapport between everybody, and that's what makes it work. And I just, I just appreciate the board directors and the Hui Chiefs and their commitment to, facilitating the representation of the rest of the community. And that right now we are trying to further strengthen because of this COVID crisis. We don't have meetings anymore, so we have to do it virtually. And just to set that up, I'm setting that up with JS Property Management, and we've set up our board meetings, but the part that our association is really involved in and shows people that we are representative is the annual membership meetings, which JS Properties is going to facilitate. We do our own board meetings and they happen on a monthly basis. And that's pretty much us in a nutshell.
That's great, great. Thank you so much for sharing that detail with us, Troy. I appreciate it. I like that a lot. There's a lot of engagement. Really good. Okay, Ku'ule, please introduce yourself.
Aloha, Ku'ule, Maunu Pau. Right now I'm Executive Director of Waiehu, a nonprofit that manages 64 acres of coastal wetlands across Pakukalo. And we're actually less than a mile from Waiehu Kou. So it has definitely been our hope to connect with the Hawaiian homestead communities around us. And a few weeks ago, I was asked if we could fiscal sponsor a grant for Waiehu Kou 3 for this, a DHHL grant for a feasibility study. So I was talking with Daniel Ornelas, and Roy was on the call. And then the board of directors did approve to fiscal sponsor Waiehu Kou 3. And then Kekoa, I've known Daniel for definitely over 20 years, and I've definitely known Kekoa for a while. She had just happened to call me this week and asked if I'd be interested in, you know, helping support a grant for a community center. And I told her that, you know, I'm juggling 3 grants right now, and we're fiscal sponsor, but Daniel was going to do the grant writing for that. So I am willing to help support in the grant, but not be the main grant writer or main coordinator. But I'm definitely available to help support this and make this happen. So mahalo for inviting Kekoa.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you so much, Ku'ule. Okay, Kainoa, please introduce yourself.
Okay. Aloha, I'm Kainoa McDonald, born and raised on Maui, transplanted just recently over to San Antonio, Texas. I came here in working with some of our Americans, a real estate company, because I'm a credit software owner of a business called Credit Edge Solutions. Through this, I think last year I met Auntie Kekoa and have just been kind of being mentored by Auntie in terms of Hawaiian homes. I am a waitlister of Department of Hawaiian Homelands, and recently just got accepted to the board of directors for the Association for Hawaiians on Hawaiian, or excuse me, Association for Hawaiians for Homestead Lands, that is supported by the SCHHA, Sovereign Council Hawaiian Homestead Associations. Many acronyms, but I am basically going to be the one of the national board members in America, I want to say, that's really going to connect or begin to start connecting more beneficiaries that are living abroad or living in America. So we've just recently connected with a bunch of Hawaiian civic groups here and kind of stirred their interest on getting on to our Zoom calls to kind of make those connections with the possibility of bringing some of the Hawaiians home. So we're just at the beginning stages of it. We're in talking sessions, kuka sessions with some Hawaiian homesteaders. So my main role with Auntie is really to assist in facilitating these Zoom calls. We found it extremely necessary that even during COVID, that our beneficiaries be able to still receive education, updates, and really are empowered through, you know, this platform called Zoom. So I moved to Texas, and we basically transplanted, and you know, I've been helping Auntie to facilitate meetings from here. So I'm a week old in terms of San Antonio, so I'm still getting used to like the time difference. So thank you everybody for having me. Okay, Auntie.
So, thank you everyone for introducing yourselves. So, I think what the purpose of this meeting is to make sure that everyone is on board with this effort, especially Roy and Waiehu Kou 3, because they've sort of taken on the Kuleana and they've applied for the right of entry to that acreage between Waiehu Kou 3 and 4. And I'm wondering, okay, I'm just kind of talking off the top of my head right now, but I'm wondering if it would be of value to form an association.
Yes, I did.
Not a DCCNR type association, but a homestead association.
Yeah, there's only one connection or link there. Okay, bye-bye.
Sorry, Miley Atai, do you think that would be of value in this at all? Or do you think that there's the motivation to do that?
I didn't hear part of your question. Was it Waiehu Kou 4 Association, or was it all Waiehu Kou? Yeah, okay. So the history with, yeah.
We need to form an association for Waiehu Kou 4, or maybe for all of Waiehu Kou.
See, here's the, yeah. Okay, so I can't speak for the whole Waiehu Kou 4, but here's some history there.
No, I'm just asking you first. You speak for yourself.
Well, let me just, before you answer as somebody, what I would say is there's absolutely no use for that. They're each separate associations and they can come together, but to create more paperwork and a whole nother entity would be definitely a waste of time and resources. So I think each entity just needs to stand on its own, you know?
I would agree. And historically, Waiehu Kou 4, we've tried to get an association going. Our 100 homes refused to pay a $50 fee a month. And frankly, the board was, you know, they were together for a good 2.5, 3 years. My husband served, and even the board couldn't get together. You know, it just, I don't know, we just couldn't get an association going.
Okay. Okay, so in terms of a community center, I mean, so Pule, I guess what I'm envisioning, or Miley and Ty and I are envisioning, is a community center that's going to be on a finger of land that Roy has identified that is not in the flood zone, and it's I guess adjacent to that highway, Kahikili Highway, and or no, is that what that highway is called? Kahikili Highway.
Yep.
There.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what, you know, how the governance of that looks. That would be interesting if upena is governing it.
Kikua, excuse me.
Community. Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead. What do you have to say?
That's Roy.
As far as the availability of that finger of land, it's a very small piece, and it is adjacent to our fire lane, which is the auxiliary exit of our homestead here, going off onto Kahikili Highway in case we had to evacuate. So this finger of land is going to be very restrictive as to how you, Eddie? This is one of our other board members from 103. And I just wanted to say that it's going to be very restrictive as to the size of the building and the parking availability. So to me, I would think that some kind of effort needs to be made to figure out the size of the building and the parking availability before we even start to ask DHHL for any kind of allotment on that land, because that land sits on one tax map key, which is adjacent to the highway.
Mhm.
We are already dealing with DHHL on another tax map key, which is further back, closer to the entrance to the golf course road,
Mhm.
that we are looking to put community gardens and some other things that would supplement our community here.
Mhm.
But the one that is available, or to me, out of any available land here in Waiehu, that one is the one that's goes along the highway. And that is right where Kope Gulch crosses the highway. So therefore it is mostly in the flood zone, which is going to be very restrictive as to how you can build, and if you can build, is insurance going to cover that build? That's the big headache. So just wanted to get my 2 cents in, and that's how I see this whole thing. I mean, there's certain steps that you got to go through first before you can even, you know, ask for something. You have to know what you're asking for.
Do you know how big that finger of land is, Roy? Is it a tenth of an acre or a quarter of an acre?
It could be as small as a, oh, I see
Yeah.
a map here. A
Yeah,
map here.
I'm pulling it up right now. Yeah.
Okay,
So
the
there's
place where we're talking about is
this one, yeah.
Oh.
where?
So there's
Where are you
a,
pointing?
so this is the one closest to Waiehu Kou 3, closest to the highway. That's
Yeah.
a 4.5, and that's the one that has that fire lane. Yeah.
And the place where it doesn't affect by the Kope Gulch is right next to the fire lane, or
Mhm.
probably, yeah, right next to the fire lane in that triangular corner of the tax map key there.
Yeah, see, and then there's the other one that's closest to Waiehu Kou 4. Now that actually isn't affected by the flood as much when I looked at the flood hazard assessments.
I see.
However, the junk part about the one closest to Waiehu Kou 4 is no more the that fire lane, like how Waiehu Kou 3 does have.
Yeah.
So
So why is that detrimental to that site?
I don't know. I'm just thinking, like, as far as access and parking and things like that, you would have to carve a way onto, you know, if there was to be a small parking lot, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And really, community center, I'm not talking about something like Waiehu Kou Community Center. Would be more like something even smaller than like Waiehu Kou, or more closer to like what Waihuli has, you know, more like a gathering place. And most of the activities, you know, could happen on the land, not so much in this community center.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, point stated, Roy, definitely looking at the flood map keys too is kind of, you know.
So you have seen the FEMA flood map under your flood zone? You have
Yeah,
seen it?
I did. I looked. I don't know if I'm. Yeah, this is the DLNR one that I'm looking at right here. I'm pulling it up on the screen. Sorry, I was doing it on my iPhone last night, but never have time to look it up this morning. And interesting, because it's looking like it flows more towards Waiehu Kou 3. I don't know.
Well, To me, I think the high point is Waiehu Kou 3's entrance.
Yeah.
And then it flows both ways from there to Waihe and to Wailuku. But we're on the cusp of the highland. So that's why, I don't know, there's all kinds, to me, engineering things that would have to be looked at, because if the water is Kope Gulch and it's flowing back towards where you're saying that we're going to need a entrance to that parcel of land north of the Kope Gulch, closer to your homestead, you're going to have to watch, because if it does flood or Kope Gulch does overflow, that road is going to catch it like a stream bed. So you got to engineer some kind of water diversion or put some drainage so that it doesn't flood that area, because that area is lower than the road. So the road would flow off the road and then find any opening, which could be the driveway to where you're looking at putting that that community center, no matter how small or big it is.
So as far as the infrastructure parts that you're talking about, wouldn't that be the kuleana of DHHL separate from this grant? Is that something we could apply or ask DHHL to do? Or we would have to get like a memorandum of agreement, yeah, before we apply?
Would think so, because I don't know if DHHL is going to sign that property over.
Yeah.
There's a place in the back here that we're looking to put, I guess, let's see. The place where we're looking at is back here where it says AE Zone XS.
Right here?
That corner there is where we're looking to put our community gardens in that section. And we have to ask DHHL to lease, well, we don't want to lease the land. We want to use that land, but we have to ask them for permission. So I would think the same thing would have to happen to the front section here where we're talking about some kind of community center.
I know, are you recording this session?
Yes.
Okay, good, because that's why I asked Moani Kiala, Katola of the digital planning department, to come into this call, because I want her to hear what the beneficiaries are saying.
Yep.
So, she would be able to advise us on the role of DHHL and all of this, but the homestead leadership, at least under the SCHHA, the Sovereign Council of Hawaiian Homestead Associations, is moving toward the beneficiaries, including for their lands versus the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. And so, this might be more of a feasibility / design / planning grant. And, the sort of ironic thing is that the upena and Credit Edge Solutions is sponsoring a 4-part Puvalu series for the centennial of this year, the centennial Puvalu series. And our speaker on the 4th and final Puvalu of this year is Malia Akutagawa, who's a professor of law and Hawaiian Studies at the University of Hawaii, Manoa. And Kainoa and I were on a Zoom call with her on Saturday. And initially I had asked her to talk on traditional land use planning in the context of how water flows over the land. And I asked her to do a 20-minute presentation, and she's actually going to take up all 2 hours of the Puvalu on December 12th to talk about not only water rights, but talk about Hawaiian homelands, its history on Molokai and Maui, their sort of sibling history, and talking about community-based economic development, and the fourth thing was aloha aina. And all of these things impact what we're talking about right here. And I think it would be of value to get, as part of this grant proposal, to get a water engineer in there and talk about the feasibility of putting a community facility, a community gathering place, what that might look like, how the beneficiaries can have input into what it serves, how it serves the communities there. But I definitely want to move forward in trying to get grant funds from the department. These are our grant monies. These are monies that are in our beneficiary trust funds, and deploying this money to serve that Waiehu Kou community, because you guys do need some kind of community facility, and getting a water engineer in there. And I told Kainole and Malia Akutagawa on Saturday that I want this community facility not to mitigate the flood zone, but to work with the flood zone. How would our kupuna work with that flood zone in serving that community there? And so it's not working against the flood zone, but working with the flood zone. And yeah, I think something positive can come out of it. And maybe it's maybe it's a new paradigm for that wetlands over there, in terms of serving your communities. And okay, so that's one thing that I want to address. The other thing is I'm concerned about Ku'ule, wanting to support this, but not wanting to spearhead this project. And so my thought in that area is, ideally we would get somebody in that Waiehu Kou community who is a community organizer, or has the potential to develop those community organizing skills, and would be willing to step in as a project manager. In the meantime, we have Paupeni has brought on an administrative officer, Tema Watson, who's very experienced in shepherding projects. She was shepherding 200 projects under the Tri-Isle entity that's just folding up shop at the end of this year. So, she can work with you, Ku'ule, and you folks could, work in a cooperative, supportive role in spearheading this project until somebody comes up out of the wallpaper to help manage this project. In lieu of somebody coming forth from that Waiehu Kou community, Tama can take, if you're not willing to take the lead role, Tama could take the lead role, and you could be in a support role, Ku'ule. That's one array that could be possible. So I just want to make sure that you, Roy, representing Waiehu Kou 3, and you, Maile, representing Waiehu Kou 4, at this point, that you're willing to support upena in writing for grant funds to do a facility planning and design grant to DHHL with upena's staff, and working with Ku'ule Maunapau in actually implementing this grant to see if it's possible to have a community facility on some part of those lands to be identified by the department. And because Waiehu Kou 3 has already written for the requests for the right of entry to those lands. So Waiehu Kou 3 would have to, definitely be play a partnership role in this effort. Is everybody on board to move forward with this effort?
I think that Waiehu Kou 3 would be, Waiehu Kou 3 for sure would have to be, I think, the lead, because they've already made, the efforts in that direction.
Yeah.
I actually have a question. So Roy, and also Maile, can you show on the tax map key, that back, area behind, is that the one that is, as you're passing, going to Waiehu Beach, like to the golf course? Is that area back there?
I can't see it. Oh, there, it's coming up now, the map. So you see there's, I think that we're looking at 3 tax map keys right now.
Got it. So
that's one of them that's on the Waiehu 4 side.
mm-hmm.
There's the one that's up by the highway.
Yeah.
That is the place where, I can see a possibility of a small community center in the corner by where the service road comes out and meets the highway, right in that triangular shaped piece.
And then where do you see the garden or that mala?
The garden we're asking for is the bigger triangular piece right where your cursor is now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
4.8 acres, 8.8.
Yeah.
And the reason why we're looking to put it there is because that place has macnut trees that are matured and also grafted. And that was what I was doing when I was on the Big Island. I had a macadamia nut orchard. So I could see that this part can be something that can either produce food for animal stock or macnuts that could be used to be sold or as food. But it also serves as a wind block between the ocean and this back portion where we would like to put raised bed gardens closer to the homestead. We already have gardens along that long strip that goes to the retention basin. That long strip right there. That is someplace where, and the triangular piece up at the top is where we're looking to ask DHHL for that right now. And this you also have to be careful of, because that big portion, the bigger retention basin you see at the back of our homestead next to the golf course. No, this one on further south. Not that. It would be the one where the retention basin is right below our, that's the retention basin for Waiehu 4. Waiehu 3's retention basin is further back, further down. No, that's the golf course. Follow that leg down to the bigger opening.
Down here?
No,
down the backside, back of the homes.
where the homes are, there's a big,
Down.
where the homes are.
That lane right there, go down to the end of the
Further
lane.
down, Miley. There? Oh, wait, no.
No,
Set of the
above
street.
that.
Yeah.
That is our that is our retention basin. All of the storm drains in our area, except for a few homes on the edge, go to that big basin. And when that basin overflows, which it did, I think only once since I've been here, since 2008, it would go down that lane in the back and then go into Kope Gulch. So that shows you how much water can come down. That place is about, I would say, from a level, I would say it'd be 40 feet deep. And it's that big. So that's like 2, 4, 6, 8, maybe 10 houses across by 5 houses across. House lots. So that's quite a bit of water. And it would drain to Kope Gulch down that lane. Yeah, right there. And go into Kope Gulch and then down to the ocean. So there's a lot of water here. And this is what our grant is now with NOAA. It's finding out what are our flood risk in this area, which would include Waiehu 3 and Waiehu 4. But Kope Gulch will, if it doesn't contain the water that is generated from the mountainside above it, the really big white white land that's across the highway from us, that above Mauka some more, yeah, right there. That big piece right there is where everything is going to come together to go down Kope Gulch from the mountain. So we're right now, our NOAA grant is trying to identify what risks are involved in water coming down the mountain and going through Kope Gulch. Also the risk of Kope Gulch bringing down a whole bunch of sediment that's going to go out onto the reef and kill the reef. So this is what we're looking at is how can we mitigate damage to the reef, erosion on Kope Gulch that could possibly jump out of Kope Gulch and go into houses on the edges of Kope Gulch. And for this, we have, I guess, a couple of people that are going to try and produce a flood risk model from UH, and also some, I don't know, there must be about 4 doctorates, I think, working on this for this grant that we're on now. And that's what we feel is priority 1.
Sorry.
Before a community center site can be a solid reality. Because there's a lot of bulldozing and a lot of stuff happening in that big area that you highlighted.
Yep.
And it's gonna take some knowledge of what those landowners are doing up there.
Yeah. Is anyone in touch with Varel at all? He's doing a lot over there. Like he took out the mac nuts and he's adding in, but it looks like larger trees, like there's coconuts but still, yeah, that's a big point.
And when they bulldoze, that water is gonna flow.
Yep.
And they're gonna have to channel it into Kope Gulch, which could overburden that waterway.
Yep. Is anyone in touch with Varel at all? Just
That's what we're trying to figure out right now. He's not very hospitable about talking about his land and what should be done on it.
I'm aware of that. Although he's made some amends with some of the people in Waiehu Valley, I think, but yeah, I'm well aware of that.
I'm just thinking that he should start engaging with us, because if this, I see a potential of becoming a,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, do you remember that dam that broke in Kauai that flooded the Makai sections?
Yeah.
As it broke, there might be a potential for that kind of thing happening here, because we got so many houses so close to the waterway going down, and so much activity in Vorel's place, that I hope he's mindful of the water that he's directing down to us.
Jeez, that totally makes sense. You know, even across that.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Auntie, did you kind of get that?
Yep, I got that.
So that definitely makes sense. Miley, can you take that link that you have up with the TMKs and put it in the chat box? Would you be able to do that? And we can, you know, kind of go over that, because, geez, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a big.
If you could overlay, I don't know, the map, the FEMA map onto the location down below the highway, that would be very relevant to see what they're anticipating as their flood zone there.
Flood zone. Mm-hmm.
So then I also put the link to the FEMA map too, right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
And there is a way GIS wise to do that, and I know because I've seen it done in talking with the planner Kachola. You can actually GIS. You can overlay streams, water, and like INA based overlays on it. And she did it, I think, in all three. We did it for Waiehu and for Molokai. So this is something we can definitely ask her to present.
Jeez, but
That would shed a lot of light.
Wow, because if you look at the flood, the GIS flood one, it's all his property too would be collecting water.
Yeah.
And
that's he needs to, I hate to say cooperate, but at least he needs to be open to listening.
Right.
Absolutely.
Look at that. That's his
whole.
Wow.
And so this, just out of curiosity, we might be taking this, but so the NOAA grant, you already received funding for that, or that's something that you're
we're in the process of application still, and that won't be solid. They won't award that until probably July, and funding for that won't be ready maybe until September.
I was gonna say September, October. Wow. Okay.
Hey, and I'm gonna have to leave the call soon, but thank you everybody for this discussion. But what I do want to say is this isn't really a partnership between Waiehu Kou and Waiehu 3 and 4, because if Waiehu Kou 4 does not have an association yet, then they're not. Then it's not something that you can say there's a partnership. There needs to be an association. Now you can have an interested Waiehu Kou 4 homesteader like Miley who's interested in supporting the project, but let's make sure, I mean, you know, I just learned after Miley's story that there isn't an association. So it's just making sure that we're not referring to a partnership at this point.
Yeah.
So, but yes, keep me in the loop, and I look forward to hearing what else was discussed in this meeting. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Aloha no. Bye-bye.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you.
So Miley, Do you think that there is a possibility that Waiehu 4 could form an organization? Or do you think that's out of the question?
I don't know. I don't even know how we would attempt to even start, like reach. I mean, we know families, like we know the younger families, and a lot of them don't really have the time. And then, I don't know, I guess we could ask.
It does take a core commitment of
Yeah.
of some people, and especially those board directors, to keep this moving so
Yeah.
that it can come out.
Yeah, when we had it going.
Can I do add
yeah.
though? Mhm. So can I also add that, you know, ideally, you know, Auntie Kekoa comes from, you know, the reason she's so, I guess, because she comes from the belief that starting, you know, homestead associations prior, you know, and having the potential either waitlisters or potential homesteaders that would get on the land work together in unison prior to getting on, you know, their INA. So again, we're kind of coming to get this, you know, from, you know, setting it up again, which in your case, my late, you know, just didn't work in the first place. Or, but maybe my suggestion, you know, would be you can take those potential families, and I would implore you to invite them to the Centennial Puvalu, December 12th,
Okay.
because we're seeing really positive reactions with people and homesteaders and waitlisters alike that have learned about the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act, and through that education kind of decided, you know, like how can I get involved, because this is important. I didn't know, you know, that my rights as a waitlister, as a homesteader, I don't necessarily have to wait for my land. And if I can get involved, you know, I'm really good at this or I'm really good at that, you know, and maybe perhaps, you know, giving them some sort of opportunity to learn could, you know, change, you know, their viewpoint on whether or not they would want to take action on their land, you know, because there are different, right? We're waitlisters. We want to get off, you know, off the list
Yes.
and on the INA. So of course we're much more excited to assist and kokua, but those who are already have, you know, their life and, you know, all of that in their homestead, you know, like I'm really busy, but
Yeah.
you know, we're finding that homesteaders are, you know, enlightened, so to speak, after finding out a lot more information on what to do and how to navigate it. So December 12th, you know, we'll start sending
Okay.
everything out, and maybe take those families and then invite them to, you know, giving a few hours of their time so that they can get educated.
So are the Waiehu Kou families on an email list from DHHL? Probably, maybe not, Jeff, no more association.
Actually, so what we do is we work with the, you know, association itself, and then we, you know, get the emails, or actually we send it to you folks, and we call that the leadership team, you know, similar to the chiefs, you know, like Uncle Roy. And then they take that and then they disseminate the information. Then it's not just coming from us, because they're like, who is she to send me information? You know, so mainly it's for us to work with you, and then for me and Auntie also is to really hear what the needs are for the association, and then what the needs are for the beneficiaries. And then for us, it's like our mission or job is, you know, to scour our homestead association network, whether it be financing, capital, grant funding, any of that, and then we kind of help make those connections. So
Just a thought too, as
this
far as
was-
making, as far as making connections too, like pounding the pavement kind, walking the neighborhoods. Just a thought, and my daughter will kill me if she heard that I suggested this, but she goes Kamehameha, she's a junior, and she has, all her girlfriends are all Kaiapuni, and they do community service. So, you know, that might be a possibility too. I can connect those kids if we ever wanted to pass out flyers or anything like that. The girls would be willing to do that. She's got a good They all live Waiehu Kou 2, 3, and 4. So we've got a lot of them covered already if you'd like us to do something like that.
We can. I too, my daughter is a 2020 Kekula Kaiapuni graduate.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, I really know. She's here with, we're all here together. So she's going to school here in Texas. But
Okay.
they definitely want to, that
Yeah.
Kuleana is like ingrained in them. You just have to figure out a very creative way to present it to them.
Yeah. Well, Kamehameha, they got to do their hours too. So, they have to do community service hours. So I'd love to see that generation step up and also help, get this going too.
Perfect. We just last week, that was our talk about session, is how do we get more Keiki and Opio involved?
Mm-hmm.
That would be amazing.
Hi. Hi.
If
Hello.
Opio
Oh, sorry.
spearheaded this thing on behalf of Waiehu Kou 1, 2, and 4. Yeah, that would be totally amazing.
I think Uncle Eddie wanted to say something. Sorry. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I just had a question about Kai. What position do you have in the community, Hawaiian Community or Association here? I'm sorry, I never met you before, that's why.
No, it's okay. Kalmai. So, I met Auntie Kekoa a year ago. And Auntie Kekoa is basically mentoring. So I'm a Hawaiian Homestead waitlister, born and raised on Maui. Since been transplanted, I would say 14 days now, to San Antonio, Texas. And essentially I took my credit software business and brought it to America. And I'm gonna, and then, but because I was already in play, in terms of assisting Auntie Kekoa with Zoom facilitation, that kind of spawned through COVID, because, we realized that there was a huge gap, that Hawaiians weren't getting the resources that they needed because, we were advised to stay home. And then through that, we wanted to be able to include our lahui or our kanaka with information. And then we started doing Zoom facilitation through that, and then hosting events and meetings and lahui kuka sessions via Zoom, so that we could keep our lahui engaged. And so during that time, I already knew potentially I was moving to Texas, and then just committed, because I'm a waitlister. So I need, for Maui, in order for me to even be considered for GHHL, we need to clear our undivided leasing list first before I can get considered. So I'm assisting with that. So we have a lot of, a lot of parts moving. I'm also the newly board member for the Association for Hawaiians for Homestead Lands, which I'm going to be the nationwide board director. And my hopes through that position is to be able to connect more lahui that live in America. I'm going to say America, that live in America, maybe connect the gap to possibly coming home and getting on homestead lands, But we're in the very, very
nice.
super early stages of that. But we have reason to believe, just based on during COVID, that we have interests of Hawaiians with a small interest of, if not them coming home, definitely their children.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Interesting about our
Good morning, Miley.
Nice to meet you too, Eddie.
Well, the first thing I want to say is this. She's involved, she's a 49-year-old Native Hawaiian, a female attorney who is born and raised on Molokai High School graduate, and then went to Whitworth College in Spokane, Washington, and got her law degree at UH. And she's involved in, I would say safely, 40 initiatives involving mostly Molokai, but statewide. And And listening to her go through her resume of activities puts to shame all of us who say we don't have the time to serve our communities on association boards or whatever. I mean, she is so involved, and I think the more involved you become, the more efficient you are, because you have community connections. You can ask for support of people to come in and help you with whatever. You know, just she was very inspiring on Saturday. So that's the one thing. If you think you're busy, you are zero compared to what the young lady is doing from Molokai. The second thing is she brought to me perspective that, you know, Upena is serving our beneficiaries, but she serves the whole island of Molokai, Native Hawaiian, and non-Native Hawaiian, and you have to work together to you know, they serve one, you have to serve the other. You just can't serve one. It's kind of the perspective that she brought to me on Saturday, and we're talking about this non-Hawaiian landowner across the street who's going to be impacting that whole Waiehu Kou community, and we need to work with him. You know, we can't work without his cooperation too. And so and I'm very excited to bring in the OPO because yes, Kainole and I at the beginning of last week or sometime last week, we're like, we want to bring in this element of involving our keiki and involving our OPO, because we want to train them as future leaders of our Native Hawaiian Lahui. And so if we can get them together and just get their little email, you know, get their emails of their ohana together, then I think we can at least form what I'd like to call is the Waiehu Kou Opio Hui, and they represent the rest of Waiehu Kou that's not, you know, that is not Waiehu Kou 3. I mean, they have their association, and we can incorporate this Opio Hui to represent, you know, to be that entity that is going to, you know, eventually involve the Makua and the Kupuna there. And that would be an amazing paradigm for us to be working from the bottom up, you know. So yeah, if you can get your daughter to get her connections in the Kaiapuni and Kamehameha Schools Maui Opio, you know, that demographic, let's get them involved and use that. You know, I'd like to incorporate that entity so that we can be, so that when we go before the Department of Hawaiian Homelands and ask for this funding, that we're going to have an entity that's representing the rest of Waiehu Kou. So yeah, if you focus and work on that, we have 2 weeks before we're submitting this, and you know, I myself have worked. I mean, it just takes 20 minutes to go online and incorporate an entity. To have, yeah, all you need is a president, you know, who's willing to be the point of contact and have his or her address and phone number and email address as the contact with the Department of Consumer Affairs to incorporate an entity. And I've done this in a matter of an hour with both Wakiu in Hana and Kahikinui before, and Unani. That's a new homestead association coming up in Waiehu Kou. So yeah, that's possible.
I do have, okay, so just based on what we learned, you know, as far as the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act, it is probably potentially more favorable that Hawaiian homesteads actually exist than, you know, having a nonprofit. Because a nonprofit, you're basically competing for the same style of funds, right? Funding. So what if, let's just say, for example, you want to bring in the OPO. What if you formulate like a questionnaire, you know, and a questionnaire that would maybe serve, you know, the potential of looking at you know, what would a homestead association, you know, maybe, I don't know, maybe have homestead association questions, you know, like a questionnaire that would go out to the public and ask the public, you know, whether because of, you know, because of the potential of grant, because man, I'm telling you, it's raining grants for us natives right now. But it's difficult, right, to get people, our lahui, to say, yes, I want to get involved. How do I do it? I mean, it's been, we've had a grant hui now for, gosh, I think since June, since OED grants with the Maui County, and it's been great, but it's just time consuming, you know, and it's only time consuming because basically it's where do you start? But like I heard Uncle Roy basically talk about the macadamia nuts and that, you know, where what he sees, you know, what he envisions, that's a grant. Like
Yeah.
right there. That's a grant. And that's just because I've been working with Uncle Peter, Hano Hano. But that's a grant because you had a mo'olelo, you had, you know, a kind of like a end game, you know, and so that right there was, I could say potentially in that, just that, you know, statement that he made, that could have been like a 3-4 page grant just based on what he said, you know, because that's ideally just mo'olelo, mana'o, and then, you know, kind of like, where do you see that? You know, what is the potential? And then what, you know, what Uncle Peter had taught us was, you know, just writing in the things to kind of close those gaps, you know, and make it more of a well-rounded grant to meet those targets. So, you know, you could either do that and ask the survey to be potentially for the appeal to go house to house and ask, you know, maybe take a survey that also included, you know, what an association would look like. And then number two, you know, in lieu of COVID-19, there are money allocations, or however you want to word it, you know, specific for malas and gardens, you know, and it could serve all of us, you know, all of us, potentially Waiehu Kou 2, 3, 4, if that's who you want to include, you know, and that would be a great way to, you know, get our communities, you know, together. But a small survey, because quite frankly, my child would not want to do what I do because she sees what we do and how many meetings we're on and how long. So if we even gave them an idea of doing what we have to do, they'd be like, are you crazy? No, they don't. You know, they don't want to do what we do because they see how hard it is. But at the same time, if we gave them a small scope of it, by even sitting down with their group and having them create the questions, you know, because my daughter,
I can work on that. Yeah.
wants to olelo of her culture and her language, but she's like, I'm not gonna do it like you guys do. You guys are on way too long meetings, you know.
Oh, I know. And then my daughter, she's on student council and she's a mover and a shaker. I mean, I'm married to a Hawaiian activist, you know, and so our discussions at home are like very, you know, and she's like, oh, we go do this. So actually, I'd like to plant that seed with her. So let me work on the OPO side with those girls. And of course, they're friends with the other kids in the neighborhood. So I think we could probably get a lot of the teenagers. I'm envisioning even like a Google, what is that called? Form, like a survey, as well as a scan code that they can hand out to families. So the families can just scan code and then do the Google form that way too. So yeah, I'll talk story with them and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, so that way it makes it lighter, you know, but it's like their first taste of what they can do because they're really good with technology, you know, and I feel like that would be better because this is what we do, right? We kuka sessions, you know, for them it's like
they want this.
Yeah, exactly. So I totally agree, and I'm sure. I mean, you know, Lei would love to, you know, come in with that and also kokua. So
I'd like to say something about what Kai was talking about as far as education of the Hawaiian Homes Act and how that is beneficial to moving people and justifying what kind of movement that is. So I guess I was on those seminars that the SCHHA had HCDC. They had some seminars, and I got the, what do you call it, the paperwork from that, and I have them on our community website right now. So if you, Miley, would like to get something like that that's already laid out, it's called Waiehu Kou phase3.org. And the particular page I'm talking about is called Lisi Education. And because those webinars are on there, they can be easily accessed by pretty much anybody.
Okay.
And I just put them on there because I have short-term memory loss.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
they're easy.
Okay.
And there's also some other things. And then we have another page on that website that's called Leadership, Lisi Leadership, I think it is.
Okay.
And that is how our governing system is broken down here in Waiehu 3. If you want to scan that out and then use that as a template for sending out these kids to try and set you up, completely free to do that.
All right.
And yeah, no
Okay, I'll
sense,
check it out.
no sense inventing the wheel again.
Right. Great.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what we don't really want to do, is reinvent any wheels if there are something that's potentially out there that we can connect with. So
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, I see that. Okay.
yay, we
Well,
might have Opio Kuliana.
So I want to move forward with this grant if it seems like it's feasible, or do we need to wait? I'm not very patient, so I'm.
Well, how about Auntie? What if is there a way, and then I was trying to mentally scan the DHHL COVID-19 grant, but is there a way that, as a result of COVID, maybe Waiehu Kou 3 and 4 maybe recognize a potential for including like this OPO project, and even if you don't max it out to the 100, right, the 100K, let's say 25K, let's just say, and potentially said, we want to, pay the OPO, something of that, where you could include the OPO within this project as a survey, or maybe a 2-part survey, almost similar to a data assessment, as a result of COVID, right? With parents working at home, right? OPO needed to find something to do. And what better way to keep them engaged in a cultural way than to help, within their community. And then
They used to call those grants capacity grants, where DHHL would come in and help set up an association of some kind by either granting money for, I guess, offices, or I don't know, you might need printers, you might need laptops, whatever. But that to me would seem like a good incentive also to start off Waiehu Kou 4, but bring in some equipment that could help you do that, and technology that would captivate the OPO audience.
Correct.
Just
Absolutely.
just saying.
Yeah.
No, I love that. you know, because even though I'm familiar with Waiehu Kou 3 and 4, I don't live there, right? So I wouldn't know at, you know, what capacity that would be, but which is so, so true. You know, most homestead association, Hawaiian Homestead Association, that's the first thing that I noticed, you know, through COVID, that, oh, my laptop, you know, Auntie's laptop, perfect example. It got, you know, it's pooped out, you know, and she's serving a huge capacity, you know, and she's got to go kind of on her little cell phone, which she does this, you know. So I like that, you know, including that right off the top, you know, 10,
Yeah.
let's just say 10, either 5 laptops and 5 iPads, you know, and that would be able to, and then a printer, right? Absolutely, you know, to include that. And that way, you know, they have a tool for them, which gives them, you know, a way to engage.
Okay.
See, you're not old after all, Roy.
They still call me dinosaur here.
But that was great.
So Keikoa, to answer your question, I mean, I kind of feel like it would be premature to apply, at least from just, this is only my own personal mana'o, but to apply for a grant about the association, I mean, the community, without doing that whole flood plan, without really looking at that area and talking to Varel. I think that you're right though, Roy, on saying, you know, we got to talk to Varel. I don't know who would talk to him, but my husband
I don't
has,
see too many volunteers jumping up, you know
yeah,
what
I mean, there was a time when my husband talked to him back when he was doing some work up in the valley, and it was contentious for a while.
That's the only kind of conversations I hear he has. I've dealt with him with the, what is that? The Waiehu stream, the Kuleana people up there.
Yep.
That was a big bust.
Yeah, but I think he's made some amends with the Kamanus a little bit. But I don't, yeah, no, I know some of that story. I've been to a Waiehu Community Association meeting where it was very contentious with him. It was
Yes.
like, I was like, oh my God, the Hawaiians are restless. But he's got to do some community service too, you know, from his angle. If he really wants to make his thing grow and he wants to be a good name in the community, he's really got to think about that, you know.
I don't know who's gonna educate him on that. It seems to be.
Let's invite him to the Hawaiian Homes, the Centennial Puvanu.
Is that sort of like what they did with Captain Cook?
Well, we learned about Captain Cook, but you know,
Just saying.
yeah. If you guys have his email, what do you think, Auntie? We'll just send him a little hello.
Maybe he respond to something from the Shaw.
You know,
Why
potentially
don't,
maybe.
I mean, we could even have a Zoom session with him and
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a meet and greet, you know, thing, and you know, yeah, just tell him what our concerns are, and you know, how can we work together, type of thing. Yeah.
Tekoa, that sounds great. And if you come up with a Zoom invitation for that, I think you could charge money for that.
Charge money.
To the audience members.
Have a couch with popcorn.
So I think actually Roy's NOAA grant project, you know, that working with the flood zone and our you know, grant-free Zoom session with this landowner can help to move things forward in terms of the community center concept. But you know, is it all right if I write up a grant proposal for this OPO initiative and get them some office space or whatever, and equipment, and a website maybe, I don't know, and T-shirts and hats and
T-shirts and hats.
Oh, yes.
T-shirt and hats.
Rash
You
guards.
know, yeah. Also, too, I mean, I don't know if they also, you know, where they would potentially meet. If it's kind of like the home community, then great. But also, I also have a business partner that does. It's called Above the Wave, right
Yeah.
on
Mhm.
highway. And so he's so open, so open. In fact, he's helping Kanuka Ike with Koa Heva Heva and his lahui
Oh,
or his group. So they
Yeah.
sit there and they kuka sessions there. So we've had a few sessions, and he wants more, you know, Hawaiians to use his area. So, you know, potentially they could use that, you know, and it's a cool place.
okay. Okay.
They take a lot of they take their own COVID precautions. So we wanted to write in those COVID measures, you know, there. We could include that as well because then, you know, like Leia's been there with a couple of her sessions too. And they love it because this is big space, beautiful, you know. So just a thought for that, you know.
And I'm wondering, Miley, if your daughter, who's a junior at Kamehameha Maui, would consider this project as her senior project.
Don't even, girl, you don't even know. Okay, so like I have tried to tell her what to do for her senior project, and she already has something in mind. Like she won't even listen to anything I tell her, but
Yeah.
it could have some connection to this. Yeah. She's hot-headed and driven. She's an A student. She won't listen to anybody. But there could be a connection there because her senior project is along the lines of starting family community gardens, basically. So
What?
very similar to what
She
Waiehu Kou 3.
has to somehow
Yeah.
get her email.
Yeah.
It would totally push her over the edge
Yep.
to see Malia Akutagawa. Because she basically takes Mala garden concepts right into developing developing an economic target at the end of that.
Okay. Yeah, because
Take
her
your
preference,
garden,
of course.
you know, yeah, your garden model, right? Your home garden, supporting the farmer.
Yep.
From the farmer, creating economic growth, using, you know, leveraging that farming partnership, and then creating, you know, like an online mobile business out of that.
Mhm.
So you know what might happen, Miley? This is what occurs to me, is that if your daughter would incorporate organizing the OPO there in Waiehu Kou to do family and community gardens and form this little network of OPO and possibly work with the landowner on the Mauka side of the highway and have him dedicate land for community center for the Waiehu Kou homesteads. I mean, that your daughter would be like really turning the paradigm on it.
And maybe they could be the ones to go approach Varel. You cannot say no to, you know, these cutie pies.
And we can write this right in the grant. And I mean, we're gonna try to approach this landowner. I don't know how to spell his name. That's why I'm not using his name. But you know, put it right in there that's like the vision is to involve the community to help one another, and somehow out of that that sort of array of ideas and youth and people to see if we can come up with the community center somewhere. And it might be Mauka. You don't know. It might be. I mean, I don't know how many acres he has, but it looks like at least 100 acres.
He owns the whole mountaintop. He owns the whole mountaintop above all Waihee town. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, you know, there's so much, I mean, I'm in a halau that is very involved in that Waiehu sand dunes,
Mhm.
in the heiau there, the restoration of the heiau there, and we've through the heiau, through the halau, we've discovered so much cultural mana that's involved in that area, in terms of mo'olelo and oli and protocol and ike. And so to involve all of that in the formation of a community facility there would really be bringing forth our kupuna and you know, and how they utilize those lands over there, and how that population came together over there.
Wow.
in the times, because they were able to, I mean, that was a very rich area in terms of feeding the land and feeding the people. I'm going to try to conceptualize a small grant, like Kainoa said, maybe it's only $25,000, but it could be huge for your, you know, to help your daughter in her project and help that whole community there, both Hawaiian and non-Hawaiian, you know, and bringing in some of Malia Akutagawa's, you know, the nature of her work and working with the whole community. So she works with that whole island of Molokai.
Yeah.
So let's try to conceptualize a grant statement and a grant project and run it past your daughter. For now, if you want to forward her email, or I could just forward whatever is coming out of my brain to you and you can share it with your daughter. Does that sound, Kainoa, does that sound like something we can work with?
Absolutely. And I would actually ask if, you know, Uncle Roy, if you could write up a little, you know, statement or value statement on the area of which you're trying to look at with the existing or pre-existing macadamia nut trees, you know, and in your work through that, you know, connect your knowledge on grafting and the area and the potential for you know, a starter area or mala, you know, and what that would look like. Because then at least, you know, with the survey, the OPIA would kind of have a small vision, you know, of, okay, this tract of land is potential, you know, and, you know, with kids, I mean, I know, you know, when you pique their curiosity, you're not telling them because they won't necessarily listen to us. Right. But if you pique their interest, like, why, where would this place be? Like, how would I know? And be like, oh, this place, you know, is over here. Like, where? Oh, over there. Then they'll go, you know, they're curious like that. And so their tendency to be like, oh, we saw that place. Like, you know. But if you just tell them, I felt, you know, because I'm a psych major, but if you tell them, they're like, oh, no, another place. Like, some, like, over there. Where? Oh, over there, you know. But at least Uncle Roy has, because he does, I really felt like I heard a grant, you know, in his explanation of where that was and what potentially could have. So if you write that up, I think you could definitely pair it, you know.
We've been already looking at verbalizing a statement about what we're been thinking, and that's going to come about with all of the input from our 7-member board of directors. But one of the things I wanted to tell you guys about, and I hope that we can all exchange emails, is because I talked to Daniel. Daniel has a new toy, and it's going to help us visualize, and it's going to help us conceptualize what we're going to do. It's a drone that we hope to fly over this area to take some movies of it, of the parcel of land, which has just been cleared out. I would think that, Marty, have you seen the area between? Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about the noise.
Those heavy machinery was down near that area.
Yeah, I'm actually really curious. Did they find like any illegal because I swear to God, there's got to be people growing pakalolo in those bushes, especially on my side, because we get so many families, they have pigs back there. And so I'm curious, like, what is being uncovered and if that's ruffling the feathers of some of the people in the association. I mean, not association, but in my neighborhood.
I see.
I'm just curious about that.
Daniel and I took a golf court. In fact, we took Eddie's golf court and surveyed and inspected the area that they were clearing. And we did notice some look like squatters' huts there, mostly on your side, right in back of your right in back of your reservoir, the place where the water goes from your storm drains.
Yeah.
And they have all moved out because they completely leveled that place. And
that was a good thing. I saw that.
if they had any pakalolo, it's turned into mulch.
Okay, good.
Because the track vehicle is not very good about, you know, what they leave behind.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is nice how they cleaned it out. I go to the beach several times a week. So yeah, it's beautiful what has been happening, but there's still some deals that go down over there, and there's still a couple squatters, like less than 10, but yeah.
Do you know Harry Brown? He lives right at the entrance to, you guys have a lane that goes out into there. And he has told me that there's a lot of, I guess, things happening and displacing of the people that were living in the bush. And now I went with Mona Kope Gulch and driven over that same area, and she's talking about DHHL fencing down below your reservoir to keep people out of there now that it's all cleared.
Yep.
So there are some things happening, and if we get any kind of drone footage, we will be able to assess what's going on even clearer. And
great.
Then I'll be sure to share that with you too.
That's great.
So supply me with your email. You can find mine right on that website that I gave you, and you know, we can start a dialogue together and figure this whole thing out.
Okay, I'll put my email in the chat box, and then also it's just maileatai@gmail. But then my work one is different because actually I took the day off today, by the way, but during the day I'm on my work email a lot faster.
I see it coming out now.
Yeah, and then the second one is my work one. So either one. Yeah, and I've got your
email too. Yeah, Waiehu Kou, just their website there.
Great.
All right, sounds good.
Awesome.
I love it. We found a way to include OPO.
Well, every sentence has a new aspect of this scenario. Because, I know Harry Brown. He is an ag waitlister and has been involved in some of our sessions. Both Eddie, Roy and Eddie Awai and myself, we went through the Ford Leadership Program together, and one of the things that came out of that was our desire to have raised bed gardens in everybody's backyard. So what your daughter's doing, can motivate, drive maybe that initiative also. There's a lot of rich stuff in here. I'm going to try to cull out the best parts of it, put it together, and see if we can't get a small grant from DHH to help support this drive to organize our OPO to have family and community gardens possibly on this macadamia gardens site that Roy has identified. That Roy's people have identified. At least some mana going in that direction. And so I want to wrap up this session. I think we do have to get some follow-up with Daniel, hopefully. But we have 2 weeks until. So should I just work with you, Miley, in putting this together, or do we need to have another Zoom session after we put something together? Or?
Yeah, let's just you and I meet up and write some things up, and then we could email out to the group, and maybe we can huddle as well.
I'm gonna write something up. Can we try to meet next Monday at 10 o'clock? Is that good? It's gonna be
Monday at 10.
yeah, a week before this is I'm gonna have to put this in the mail. So can we just kind of pencil in 10 o'clock next week, Monday? We'll get together on Zoom again. Does that sound good, Kainole?
That sounds good, Auntie.
Okay, good. All right.
Are you gonna mail out a Zoom link?
Yeah.
Are you gonna email out a Zoom link? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the link. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And then maybe Uncle Eddie, what do you think? Because he's been kind of quiet. Oh, Uncle, you're muted.
Mute.
You're unmute.
I approve.
Okay. Amazing. Thank you.
Awesome.
yeah, so Eddie, did you want to say anything?
No, thank you very much.
Uncle Eddie, could you offer a closing pule, just a brief closing pule for this session? Would that be okay?
I don't know how to do that.
Excuse me?
How about you? Why don't you do it? I don't do.
You don't do that? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do the closing pule. Okay. Pule kako. So, thank you, dear Lord, for this wonderful session this morning, Zoom session. Thank you for all of the participants. Bless all of our participants going into the Thanksgiving holiday. Give thanks for them. And, I think it's really auspicious that at the beginning of the season of Makahiki, honoring Lono, the deity of agriculture, that this session has come out with something that is going to grow our opio, mana, and ike, and action. And on behalf of the Waiehu Kou community and all of and both Hawaiian and non-Hawaiian communities. And we thank Kainole for facilitating this, for Roy and his mana'o, for Miley and her proactivity, and Kule, I know will play some role in this too. So bless everyone, and continue on in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Mahalo.
Happy Thanksgiving. Miley, what is your daughter's name?
Moani Tiare. That's her first name.
Moani.
Last name Atai.
Atai.
They probably know each other, yeah. 2 years apart.
No. Oh yeah, was Kaipuni, yeah.
Yeah. She's good friends with the Keahi girl twins. Kalele's daughter is her good friend too, Amalani. Keiko Oha Schultz.
Junior at KSM.
Yeah.
So this is Lele here. Say aloha.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's mine.
Yeah.
Aloha. Hi.
Aloha.
Hi.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Held Amalani Kikaoha Schultz in his arms when she was an infant, and that was at the wedding of Kou, at the wedding of Kou's
Oh my goodness.
Oh wow.
And Emma was just a baby, and we
Oh.
were all at the wedding reception. Yeah.
No, Kalele is my sister wife during COVID. Our kids all hang together. That's the only family we trust.
I love it. Yeah.
Mahalo. So yeah, we'll get together next week, Monday,
Sounds good.
same time.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
So much.
Thank you very much. Aloha.
Okay. Ahoy ho. Uncle Roy, make sure if you want to get Uncle Eddie's email, send it together, and then we can include him in the link too.
Okay, I got his email.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ahoy ho.
Ahoy ho.
Oh, thank you, Roy.
Take it easy, Eddie.